You know, this is a fascinating story to me, and I've been watching. You actually believe Robert Mueller has a target on your back, and that Robert Mueller may try to indict you, and for what reason?
That's an excellent question. All my political activities in 2016 towards electing Donald Trump are perfectly legal and fully disclosed. I think I'm being persecuted because I'm a supporter of the president. I'm a friend of Paul Manafort's, and I think they would like to find some extraneous offense on which they could pressure me to give them something on Donald Trump. That, Sean, is something that will never happen.
It's not a fun feeling, is it, to think that you have the power of a special counsel and unlimited resources and a team that I've talked an awful lot about, why the rest of the country doesn't seem concerned that the special counsel Robert Mueller has put together a team of only Democratic donors, no Republican donors, no independent donors, and then Jeannie Ray, who was a lawyer for the Clinton Foundation, that's part of his team. We now know that there were 3 Trump-hating FBI guys that were a part of the team, including Peter Strzok himself. And we also know Andrew Weissman, who has the most atrocious ethical record of any lawyer I think I have ever heard of in the United States. Well, he's the pit bull of Mr. Mueller, and that's troubling to me. And my big question is, why doesn't anyone else in the country seem to feel or understand that is an abusively biased group of people?
Well, not only that, but Sean, you're absolutely right. Having federal prosecutors unfettered poking through every single molecule of your personal life, your business life, your political activities, asking intensely personal questions of my associates and former associates. How does he get along with his wife? How's his relationship with his children? Does he drink a lot? Does he use drugs? Where's his money come from? Who are his clients? I thought this was about Russian collusion. But it's clearly not. This is a hit squad. This is a get Trump squad, and their job is to undo the results of the last election. Robert Mueller's record is atrocious. This is a guy who arrested the wrong 3 guys in the anthrax matter. The guy they did arrest dies mysteriously in custody, fails to investigate reports of the Sarasota flight school where 5 of 9 9/11 hijackers are training, who lies to leave 4 innocent guys in jail in Boston to protect mafia informants of the FBI, and who mules the uranium specimens to Moscow in the Uranium One matter. When Lindsey Graham says he's widely respected on a bipartisan basis, what was he talking about?
I don't know. I really, here is, I think, a real big problem we have. And go back to Judge Ellis and what I thought was one of the biggest judicial beatdowns from the bench I've ever seen. And when Judge Ellis said about the special counsel, let me see, I think I understand this, that you go back to the Justice Department, you reopen a case from 2005 that has to do with tax fraud, has nothing to do with Russia. You're supposedly investigating Russia collusion, and you reopen that case, but it had to do with Ukraine, and then what you want to do here is you want to put the screws, his words, not mine, to Paul Manafort. So Paul Manafort begins to feel the heat and the pressure, and then he begins to sing or even compose his words, meaning suborn perjury is my interpretation. And then, by the way, then you get to prosecute or impeach Donald Trump. That seems to be the obvious case that's going on here. And by the way, he said that with Andrew Weissman in the courtroom. And it seems like that's what they're doing with everybody because they don't have any evidence on their own.
But their Achilles heel are the unconstitutional illegal FISA warrants that I believe were levied against Paul Manafort, Carter Page, and according to the New York Times on January 20th, 2017, Roger Stone. The government in the Manafort case continues to insist that Manafort was never under surveillance at any time, even though the New York Times, the Washington Post, AP, Fox have all reported otherwise. They don't want to talk about that illegal, politically based surveillance, which is why Manafort's sitting in jail. That's why they're squeezing him to plead guilty, because they don't want to go to trial and answer that question.
You know, it really is going to be very interesting because, look, I've not had a lot of experience with judges in my life, but I do know this. you lie to a judge, you're going to be in deep trouble. And we know on 4 separate occasions, the original FISA warrant application and 3 subsequent applications, the final one, interestingly, signed by Rod Rosenstein, used Hillary Clinton bought and paid for Russian lies, many that have been debunked, that was funneled money to an op research group, then to a foreign national who I thought wasn't supposed to influence American elections, who himself, under an interrogatory in Great Britain, said that he didn't think any of the intelligence was verified or corroborated, and maybe it was 50-50. And that becomes the basis of FISA warrants to spy on American citizens, Roger. That's not the United States of America. That's not constitutional.
And is it coincidental that even today Rod Rosenstein is refusing to hand over information regarding those very FISA warrants to the Congress? This is the cover-up. This is their Achilles heel, and they know it. A FISA warrant can only be issued against an American citizen if they are actively involved in espionage on behalf of a foreign power against the United States. That clearly was not the case here. This is much, much worse than Watergate. This is the use of the power and the authority of the state to spy on Donald Trump's campaign for president.
It's even worse than that, though. No, they literally put the fix in on Hillary Clinton, who did commit felonies and who did obstruct justice. The case, there's never been a more clear case of either. The violation, mishandling, destruction of classified information, violation of the Espionage Act, nor the obstruction of justice case, which is deleting subpoenaed emails, acid washing your hard drive, and beating up your devices with hammers. And why do I suspect if you did it, you would be handcuffed and you'd be in solitary confinement like Paul Manafort right now?
Well, and if we had an attorney general and an assistant attorney general committed to the rule of law, we might be prosecuting those crimes. But instead, we're covering up an effort by the Obama Justice Department to rig the previous presidential election.
Mm-hmm. Let me ask you this. Well, you recently added an addendum to your testimony. I think it was before the House Intel Committee and Devin Nunes.
Correct.
And
Correct.
In that, you said you wanted to add, apparently, Michael Caputo had asked you to meet with this particular guy that I guess he said was Russian?
He knew he was Russian. I didn't know he was Russian until I met with him, and then it was pretty clear from his accent. Mm-hmm. But yes, I simply did not recall this. It was a 20-minute meeting. It was ludicrous, the idea that Trump would pay $2 million for documents. But as I said earlier, I have no reason to dissemble or hide the meeting because I acted properly. I rejected the effort. So
you met with this guy for 20 minutes, and it turns out it was an FBI informant who actually was from Russia, but was on, a visa because I guess he had 9 different visas given to be an FBI informant, even though he had committed violent felonies in Russia?
Yes, exactly. So how does a guy who spent 10 years in prison in Russia for a gun crime enter the country? Hopefully the House Intelligence Committee will get to the bottom of why he was in the country, or more importantly, how he was in the country in 2016. CNN, by the way, reports this story today, never mentions, not once, that he was an FBI informant, as if they're not watching, they're not listening. It's extraordinary.
So what do you do? I mean, and what does that mean that, we have talked about the FISA abuse, we've talked about the felonies Hillary committed, we've talked about a rigged investigation, an exoneration written before an investigation, we've talked about, and the IG report pointed out in unbelievable, shocking detail, the hatred and antipathy towards the president and the love of Hillary and how they went all in to help her and destroy him. And when you put all of this together, and then you've got spies literally in the Trump campaign, and they had they used the lying dossier to get these FISA warrants. How do you fix this abuse of power to this extent? Because you're still living through it. I mean, do you fear you might get indicted? Do you fear they're going to bang in your door like they did Manafort in, some early dawn raid with guns blazing?
Well, if I say yes, then MSNBC will report that Stone fears his criminal culpability in extraneous crimes. It's entirely possible, but it would have to be contrived. All
right, we'll take a break. More with Roger Stone. His book is out, Stone's Rules, How to Win in Politics, Business, and Style. All right, as we continue, Roger Stone is with us. His book is out. It's called Stone's Rules, How to Win in Politics, Business, and Style. Let me go back to this addendum that you gave, or addition you gave to your testimony before the House Intelligence Committee, Devin Nunes' committee. and this meeting with this individual that wanted you to pay him $2 million for op research on Hillary. And I think the first thing we've got to point out is op research and paying for op research is pretty much standard operating procedure in politics today, right?
Well, actually, you rarely pay for it, but it's offered to you, and most of it is garbage. As a political professional, it would be irresponsible not to check it out and see if there's anything of value.
Well, that's my point.
He never described it as emails. He never told me what it was. I just thought it was a con job at the time, just a shakedown for money.
Why did you think? Why did you not remember when you testified, considering this whole thing was about Trump-Russia collusion? Because just knowing the media, they want to jump on anything they can. And they're going to say, really, Roger didn't remember?
Here's why. Because it was May of 2016, and Hillary had not yet played the Russia card. Russophobia had not yet become an issue. People say, well, $2 million, that's not a lot of money. I found Donald Trump as a friend of his and a confidant of his and a consultant to him for 39 years. He's a billionaire. He had said publicly he would spend whatever it took. I've seen people try to get millions out of him for years, so the number was not jarring. It was unrealistic because Trump was not paying for any opposition research.
Oh, he spent less than anybody, I know.
Character using an alias.
So that's interesting. So this was in May of 2016. Russia wasn't on the radar in any way at that time. And you sit with this guy, you think he's a fraud, and you just see, okay, go get $2 million from someone else, and you just forget it and move on. And then you never brought it to the president or anybody in his campaign.
Correct. I never discussed it with Donald Trump as candidate or as president. Never discussed it with anyone in the campaign because it was a ludicrous idea. It was not until Caputo was interviewed by Robert Mueller's people, who, by the way, seem to know all about this, interestingly enough, that it jarred his memory.
In other words, that would be an FBI informant, and you believe a setup. A setup, in other words, for you.
Exactly.
About Russia, which is it's interesting in terms of the timeline because nobody was thinking about Russia then.
But it is about the time that the Australian ambassador reaches out for Papadopoulos. By the way, they didn't meet in a bar. This was pre-scheduled. And I believe that is the case.
Well, May was the month that Strzok and Comey were writing the exoneration, but they wouldn't interview Hillary until July. But yet that exoneration was being written with the term gross negligence in it and the fact that it was likely foreign entities had hacked into Hillary's email. By the way, everybody hacked into that email server of hers. Everybody, apparently. Well,
I believe that to be the case. As I said on your TV show the other night, I believe this is the earliest manifestation of the Peter Strzok insurance policy. This is very clearly an FBI sting, which, fortunately, I reject out of hand. The whole thing was over in 20 minutes.
Good for you. I bet you're glad you did. I mean, the
guy shows up at the meeting wearing a MAGA hat and a Trump T-shirt.
Why are we inviting violent felons and sending them into political campaigns, but only one campaign? It's a question we need an answer to. Roger Stone, thank you for being with us.
Sean, thanks for having me.